I'm Michelle Borel. I'm an author, broadcaster, as well as a marketer. I have the opportunity to share with you a program that I call Brand You, in which we discover more about ourselves and work on developing your personal brand. This is session 2 of Brand You, and with me today we have Penelope Spencer. So, enjoy. Just remember to subscribe and give a review. Let us know what you think of this session. Thank you. I'd like to welcome you to Brand You. It's all about developing your personal brand. This is session 2, and I have with me Aunty Penny. We'll
Michelle, sorry, I can't get a video on.
No problem, my darling.
Hi, Michelle.
Hearing you loud and clear now, Aunty Penny.
Now?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
I love this shirt.
Oh, yeah? Thanks.
Lovely. Aunty Penny, would you like us to go as we run through it? We'll open the forum up. And as we open the forum up, we will allow any questions that you wish to share, any feedback, anything of value that you would like to add to the conversation that we're having today. So thankfully, we have Aunty Penny joining us. I fondly call her Aunty Penny. And Penelope Spencer, I want to share with you a little story before I even had the opportunity to connect with Aunty Penny. I remember sitting at Price Plaza having a cup of coffee, and Aunty Penny was driving by in her car, and I got up from my seat to shout, "Aunty Penny!" Now, Aunty Penny didn't know me then. She always knew my mom, but she didn't know me. But that's the kind of emotion that Aunty Penny is able to bring about from people, you know? She is someone that is well loved. So I have the opportunity to share with you even more on Aunty Penny in just a bit, but I want to take this time to welcome you to Brand You and welcome you, tribe of talented thinkers. And I chose talented thinkers because we have to have the ability to think on our own. I'd like us to take a moment as we journey to paradise, because paradise is within you. And as we journey to that paradise, I would like us to repeat these words. I am uniquely me, as unique as can be, and with that, there is such beauty. In discovering me, I can allow others to be, as I have found paradise within me. So let's take a moment to repeat this yet again. I am uniquely me, as unique as can be, and with that, there is such beauty. In discovering me, I can allow others to be, as I have found paradise within me. And the final time, and we'll slow it just a little bit to ensure that it sinks into our spirit. I am uniquely me, as unique as can be. And with that, there is such beauty. In discovering me, I can allow others to be, as I have found paradise within me. It was just last week that I had the opportunity of sharing with you my family history, and that is so important in understanding who we are. And I also told you about those who came before me. And persons may know me as Michelle Borel, either as an author or broadcaster or marketer, but it's so much more than that. You know, growing up as a child, I was Mokshi Billy Beep daughter, Mishi Poo, Mish Mish, poor child, Ducky Bottom, among so many other things. You know, and there are so many facets to us as beings. So with that, I want you to remember those childlike images, because we're going to talk a little bit as well about visualization and some tools that I use. And we'll find that inside the section of difficult people, right? So 3 popular personality tests. Now, there are varying personality tests when it comes to a person's understanding who they are, how they work, and so forth. But there are 3 main ones that we'll be talking about today: the myers-briggs, as well as the DISC assessment and the color quadrant. Since the time of Hippocrates, personality science has been studied. And Hippocrates, he had focal points on 4 main personality types, which we'll get into in just a bit. But as we take a look at us delving deeper into ourselves, let us remember the words of Wolfgang, in which he said personality is everything in art and poetry. So we remember that personality is everything in art and poetry. And it's amazing that you said art and poetry because those are two tools that we use to be able to express ourselves. But as you take a look at personality, the dictionary gives you a whole host of explanations in terms of personality. But today we'll be looking specifically at the psychological aspect of personality. And with that, we understand when it comes to personality types, they're both negatives as well as positives in terms of personality. But we're going to work on continuing to strengthen those positives and see what we can do to transform those negatives in a way that could be useful for us. So as we continue, I want us to gently deal with ourselves in remembering I am that I am. Introverts, extroverts. Firstly, we break it down into two types. Persons normally say you're either an introvert or an extrovert, and then in recent times it goes a little further with persons describing themselves like introverts with extrovert qualities and so forth. So how do you determine if you're an introvert as opposed to an extrovert? Well, introverts, they prefer spending time in solitude, while extroverts have large social networks. Introverts avoid being the center of attention, while extroverts enjoy being the center of attention. So it's basically opposites that we're dealing with. Then with the 4 personality types that we touched on very briefly, and now we're going to get into a bit more. You have 4 personality types: the sanguine, the choleric, the melancholic, the phlegmatic. And I chose this chart in particular because I found that it brought something very useful into it. It brought the elements: air, fire, water, earth. And I found, hey, elements, this is something we can work with because we know of elements: earth, water, air, fire. And when we think of the description of elements, very often someone might say she had a very fiery passion, or she was grounded like the earth, and so forth. And that helps us to understand the characteristic of someone. So we use elements, and it's something that we can easily relate with. When it comes to that now, and we think of the earth, the water, the fire, and the air, and the characteristics of these elements, then we wonder, how do these elements interact with each other? What would happen then if we were to mix water with earth? It would be a muddy situation. But then when I think of earth, I think of, if you plant something in the earth, you still need water to help that seed to grow. So it's interesting to see how the elements work with each other. What would happen if you mix air with fire? What would happen if fire was on top of the earth? What happened if you pour earth now on top of the fire? So how do these elements interact with each other? And then that brings us back to this. Would it then make this any clearer for us to be able to understand as we focus on the elements as part of this? The choleric type being the fire type, those who will do. The earth type, the melancholic, those who are more grounded, more thoughtful, considerate, cautious, organized. While the water now, the phlegmatic, in which they will at times could possibly be moody, but when you think of water as well, it's also very refreshing. A lot of people, when they want to renew or revive themselves, where do they go to? They go to the beach, they go to the sea, they go somewhere where they can be in water, or sometimes after a long day, the first thing you want to do to refresh yourself, have a nice shower. And those who have the luxury of a bathtub will love the opportunity to soak in it. When you think of the sanguine characters, air, you know, they're the social butterflies of the earth. They're everywhere, right? So I'm hoping that looking at it from the standpoint of elements, it will help us to remember that a bit more. And then we look at the color quadrant. Someone like myself, in doing the color quadrant, found out that I'm actually blue. And what I love about the color quadrant, it actually connects you in terms of asking questions of what you would have done as a child, because very often it's who we were in our childlike state gives us a better understanding of who we are when we have those moments to really reflect on those periods in our life. So the blue, they're more about let's do it right. And I think you could tell that from my personality, because I did share in the first session, this is an idea that I had more than 10 years ago, but it took me some time because I was what? Thinking blue introvert. Whereas the extroverts, which my husband definitely is, he's the let's do it type. Let's do it. And you'll find that very much if we are in a car and he is in the passenger seat. Michelle, green light, go. Which is something that could irritate me. So sometimes he needs to tone the red down a little bit, and maybe sometimes I need to tone the blue down a little bit. Whereas my mom, she is that sunshine yellow. She is a people person. She's always about let's do it together. If we're planning a trip, I will be the one to sort out where we're going, what time we reach in here, what we'll be doing at whatever hour, and my husband will be just waiting for us to go. And my mom will be the one who would have already invited everybody else in the family, extended family, and even friends to come on the trip too. In terms of let's do it harmoniously, that's the green type. So this is what we look at in terms of the color quadrant. And I found this quite interesting because in terms of the colors that make up the world, and yet still there are so many shades in between, the blues represent 15%, while the greens, 23%, the orange or the red, that's 27%, and the golds, they're 35%. So then that brings us into the Myers-Briggs personality type. And interestingly, the Myers-Briggs personality type, this was something that was started in the 1960s, but it was started by a mother and daughter. Catherine is the mother and Isabel is the daughter. And Catherine decided to come about with this and got very interested in looking at personalities when her daughter's future husband, Mr. Myers, came into the picture because she found that he had a very different way of thinking and looking at the world to what they had. And they started their study and they looked a lot at what Carl Jung would have been doing and so forth. And this is what came into play. So in this, you're probably asking, she's talking to us, but who is she in the 16 personality type trait? In doing the test, I represent INFJ, which is introversion, feeling, intuition, judging, right? And then in being able to assess yourself, interestingly enough, if you ever did the 4 personality types characteristics, I found it would have been very helpful in seeing how this will then connect with the 16 personalities according to the Myers-Briggs. So the sanguines, the phlegmatics, the cholerics, the melancholics, and then there's some who are a bit of both, right? So when we think of happiness and personality, I found these words quite potent. And it's from Mahatma Gandhi. And he says, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. So this is what we hope to work on today. Thank you, Auntie Penny. With this though, I'm going to give everyone an opportunity because I will send a list of valuable sites that you can go on where you can do these tests that we would have spoken about at absolutely no cost. And so I want you to write this down. This is something that as a poet, when I was just about 16, 17, around there, I would always say this, and it's understand our nature, but nurture within something divine. So now that we looked at what makes you tick, now we look at what ticks you off. So difficult people, we've all had to deal with difficult people, or did we even have to deal with difficult people? We need to challenge our perception at times, but still when we think of difficult people, we would say difficult people always tend to be angry, unsatisfied, unhelpful, unreliable, negative, selfish. You know, do you know difficult people? Are you at times difficult? So here's a quick exercise that I'd like us to do. I want us to write the traits of difficult people. Take the time and write down some of the traits in terms of difficult people. If you think of someone who is difficult, what would those traits be? You take a moment, just read silently to yourself what you have written. And then we're going to take this paper and we're going to rip this paper up. After we register, okay, this is what we thought in terms of difficult, rip it up and rip it in as many pieces as you possibly can. We're going to take a quick moment, we're going to get up and we're going to throw this paper away. Hi, Leanne. Hi, Javon. Thank you so much and welcome back. Thank you for taking the time to do that and opening up in that sense. And the reason we did that is because we have to remind ourselves consistently that we have to challenge our perception, and it's a lot smaller than we may think. And we have to throw away that perception and let it go. Hit that subscribe button. It's right there. Hit it. And that way, anytime I upload a video,